subgroup. And then we have a third one which talks about, well, there's a lot of literature in open source that says it's important to get the peripheral members involved with the core. So we also look at the closure between those two groups, thinking there might be some different things happening there. So in the case of group closure, we do expect to see positive results from interaction needed to produce software, just like you would see in Teams. But we do recognize that these open source communities are different, and some of the open source tools reduce the need for interaction. So for example, software modularity. It's recognized that modular software in open source, what that means is that the different modules, if you make a change to code in one module, if it's well done and well designed, that does not cause any change in another module. So it allows people, in a sense, to work somewhat independently of each other. So those kinds of tools do reduce this need for interaction. And further, we know that these are voluntary efforts, at least within our study population. And so at some point, there's going to be kind of a cost of ties effect. I mean, these are people who are volunteering. So basically what we think is we will see this positive result, as we see here, but at some point, it's going to become too many times or burdensome to this voluntary group, and we see then a negative downside. Now, core and peripheral two-mode closure, we also suggest that. So in the case of core closure, we expect maybe some additional positive results because within the core, these are the people that are doing more of the work, in a sense. And so we'd expect to see more interaction among that group. So there you might see a more extended positive segment with maybe a little bit of a down. In the case of peripheral two-mode closure, again, while you see some of these results, results, we think there'd be some additional positive results because the literature says it's important to involve the periphery in the core.
You're 1/3 way through.
Your 45 minutes is... You been counting the question? Okay, so three different views of closure, but basically all of it has the inverted U shape to that. Now for bridging, we look at bridging ties of the core subgroup. So again, these are membership ties of that core subgroup to other project communities. And we also look at a more restrictive view, saying, well, the important ones may be just the administrators and the ties that they have to other subgroups, to other communities. So in the case of core bridging, we know a lot of the positive results you see in teams, that you have access to new ideas, problem-solving help, market information. But you have this additional benefit from recruitment. So recruitment is really not important to teams in that it's the organization that does it. But in the case of communities, there's no organization recruiting anything. So in a sense, the community has to do its own recruiting. And to the extent that there's bridging ties, we think that might also help in that respect. On the downside, we do see some limited result from cost of ties, but it's only one actor. So it's basically you're tied with somebody outside your community versus in closure, you are, two people are tied up in a tie. So all that taken together, we do think we're not going to see any kind of a downturn. We're going to see all positive results. In the case of administrators, maybe even some additional positive results because of the leverage of their special position, maybe an improvement. And there is this notion of a linchpin developer, and this is where they've done studies of the whole source code membership network, and they've noticed that there are these small number of developers that tend to connect together a lot of projects. And then if you remove those developers like a linchpin, then those project communities become disconnected. So we're thinking maybe those are administrators, maybe it's kind of a key person idea, and that's why we're focusing on administrative bridging. Lastly, leader centrality. Of course, the leaders in this case are the administrators, and we look at the central position of the administrator subgroup. We project this to be an inverted U. Again, some positive results. There is the need to interact, coordinate, integrate work with developers. But again, these are voluntary administrators. Definitely could be some overload here. So that's why there might be a downturn. Also, there might even be some lost sense of ownership. Literature talks about the need for the members of the community to feel a sense of ownership. If the administrators are central to all conversations, they might be kind of overbearing and take away some of that sense of ownership. So all that together, that's why we project this kind of a relationship.
So, David, just to keep it in perspective, what you're doing now is you're taking us through the first